Well, now we know what it means to decline a Latin adjective because we've been practicing with first and second declension adjectives. The concept will still be the same when we deal with third declension adjectives. We just have to learn some special circumstances that occur with third declension adjectives. You might remember from earlier in the unit that there are three types of third declension adjectives. Those that have only one nominative form, these are two examples of third declension Latin adjectives that have one termination. The first word, audax, or ingains, is the nominative singular form for all three genders, and the second word that we see is the genitive form. So let's talk about how to decline this type of third declension adjective, and then we'll address how to decline adjectives that have two terminations, and finally adjectives that have three terminations. So adjectives with two terminations are declined very much like, well, actually not very much, exactly like third declension nouns. The nominative form, which is the first word, so this is the nominative form. The nominative form is used no matter what gender we're asked to conjugate something in, and then the genitive form, which is the second word, is used as the genitive form and is where we get the base of the adjective. So let's see a typical setup for a type of question that you will be asked when you want to decline or write a specific form of an adjective. So let's start with decline the adjective ingains, ingentis, in the neuter gender. So this means that we want to write the adjective ingains, ingentis in all of its forms, all of its case forms, for the neuter gender only. So we start by writing the nominative singular, which is ingains, and then we continue by writing the genitive singular, which is ingentis. Now before we can add endings, we need to get the base of the adjective, and since this functions like a Latin noun, we simply remove the is, these letters right here, from the genitive ending. I'm removing is because this is third declension, and is is the genitive ending. So the base is ingent. This is what I will add all endings to. So I'm just getting my bases in order, and then I'll go back and add endings. So we're dealing with neuter. Now I have an issue here because in the neuter law says that the accusative singular looks the same as the nominative singular. So you can see that if I work with the base, that I'm not going to end up with a form that looks exactly the same as the nominative singular. So what I need to do is simply erase the base and write in its place the nominative singular. I need to return to my base, however, when I continue to add the remaining case endings. Don't forget that for third declension adjectives, the ablative singular ending is I instead of E. Please also remember that in the neuter plural, instead of using just the letter A as the nominative and the accusative plural ending, you're going to see the letters I and A. And when we deal with third declension adjectives, the genitive plural ending is IUM instead of just the letter um like it is for nouns. So this is what the adjective ingens ingentis will look like when it is declined in the neuter gender. Let's switch the gender now and try it in the masculine or feminine, because it will look exactly the same. Remember that with a third declension adjective or noun, the masculine and feminine forms look the same. So we begin by writing the nominative form, and because this is a single termination adjective, the nominative singular for the masculine and feminine looks exactly the same as the nominative singular for the neuter. The genitive form is ingentis. I'm going to remove the is to get my base. And then I'm going to go back and add my third declension masculine and feminine adjective endings. They will look nearly 100% like the noun, with the exception of the ablative singular, which will be the letter I, and the genitive plural, which will be the letters IUM. So this is what the adjective ingens ingentis will look like when it is declined in the masculine and feminine. I would like you to try to decline the adjective audax, audacis in the neuter. Decline the adjective audax, audacis in the neuter. So I'm going to give you a few moments to do that. I would not think about this in your head. I would not fast forward the video. I would actually get a piece of paper and I would practice declining the adjective. This is work that you are asked to do in your weekly attendance assignment, so you need to know how to do it. And when you are practicing the flashcards, you are also going to be asked to write the form of nouns, as well as on tests. So it is important for you to be able to know how to do this. We start by writing the nominative singular form, which is audax. We continue by writing the genitive singular form. And then we follow that by getting the base of the adjective and adding the appropriate ending. So we're at the dative, so we'll add I. I'm asked to decline this in the neuter, and the neuter law says that the accusative singular should look the same as the nominative singular. So that's audax. I'm next going to add an ending for the ablative singular, which means I have to go back to using the base, and I add the letter I. And now I move to the plural. So that when I am finished declining the adjective audax, audacis in the neuter forms, it will look like this. This adjective means bold. It's where we get our English word audacity or audacious. Usually the term audacity in English has a negative connotation. Usually when you are confronting someone with audacity, or you talk about the audacity of that person, it has a negative idea. They confront you with boldness, but inappropriate boldness for the situation. All right, let's continue to practice with this adjective, but now I'm going to ask you to decline it in the masculine and feminine. So you do that, and I will wait, give you a little bit of time. Remember that the masculine and feminine endings will look the same. We begin by writing the nominative and genitive forms, which are given to us on the vocabulary. And then we proceed by writing the base, and to the base we're going to add the appropriate ending. And there we have the adjective audax, audacis, declined in the masculine and feminine forms. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me with your questions and I will get right back to you. Now let's go on and look at how to decline third declension adjectives that have two terminations. These are the ones that have two words, and the first word has to end with the letters is, and the second word ends with e. There are lots of these kinds of third declension adjectives. We're going to work with these two, brewis, excuse me, which means brief or short, and grauis, which means heavy, serious. Brewis is where we get words like brevity, or grauis is where we get a word like gravity, or even the term grave. Now, not the grave that you bury someone in, but when we talk about the gravity of a situation, the seriousness, the heaviness of it, a grave wound was sustained in the car accident, it's very serious. So this is a two-termination adjective. I know this because the first word ends in is and the second word ends with e, and this means that I'm looking at two different nominative forms. Grauis and brewis are the masculine and feminine nominative. Brewe and graue are the neuter nominative singular forms. So if I ask you to decline the adjective in the masculine and feminine, and we're going to practice, I'm going to show you how to work with the adjective brewis, brewe. You will begin like this. You will write the nominative singular form for both masculine and feminine. To get the base of this adjective, you're going to go to the nominative neuter form and remove the e. Both forms have the same base, but what I want you to notice is that the nominative neuter form is spelled differently than the masculine and feminine neuter form. It replaces the is with the e. So if you remove the e, because that's what's spelled differently than the first nominative form, whatever you have left over is going to be the base. So the base is brev, and to that we're going to add all of the remaining third declension masculine and feminine adjective endings. I know they look exactly the same. The genitive singular for brewis is brewis. That's not a mistake. They will look exactly the same. And then we go on and we add the dative singular, the accusative singular, the ablative singular, remembering that the ablative singular for adjectives is different than the ablative singular for nouns. Now we're up to the genitive plural, and remember again that the genitive plural is different for adjectives than it is for nouns. And then we finish. And so now we have declined the adjective in the masculine and feminine. Let's try the same adjective, but this time we're going to show you how to do it in the neuter gender. So this is going to be different because now we have to start with the neuter nominative form, which is brewe. I'm still going to use the same base. I'm going to add is, which is the genitive singular, for third declension. When I'm dealing with neuter, I have to remember that the neuter accusative singular looks the same as the nominative accusative singular. So I'm just going to put an E on there. I have to spell the base of it the correct way though. Now I'm done with the singulars and I move on to my plural. Remember that in the neuter plural you're going to use IA and not just the letter A. IUM for the genitive. And so here we have the neuter forms of the adjective brewe, brewis. I'm going to ask you to practice, and I'm going to ask you to practice with the adjective grawis, grawe, and I'm going to have you start by declining it in the masculine and feminine forms. Remember that when you're working with masculine and feminine, the nominative singular and the genitive singular will look exactly the same. So this is what the singular forms will look like. Give you a little more time in case you didn't get to do the plurals. Oops. Should go on the next line. And there we have the adjective grawis, grawis, declined in the masculine and feminine. We're not writing the vocative forms. The vocative forms for an adjective will look the same as the nominative. It will follow the same rules as nouns do. Okay, so we're going to change your next practice to neuter. Some of you may have already started, so I want you to decline the same adjective, grawis, grawe, in the neuter forms. Remember that when you have this type of adjective with two terminations, the second word is the neuter nominative form. And don't forget the neuter law, which says that the accusative singular will be the same as the nominative singular. All right, there is the adjective grawis, grawe, declined in the neuter. If you have any questions, make sure to email me immediately. And now let's go on and take a look at our third type of third declension adjective, which is one with 3 terminations. So we know it has 3 terminations because there are 3 words and each of the words looks different from the other. So those are 3 different nominative forms. If we begin with the prompt to write the adjective acer, acris, acre in the masculine, or instead of saying right, let's say decline, in the masculine, we're going to begin by writing the masculine nominative singular form, which is acer. Before I can add endings, I have to get the base. When I deal with this type of adjective, I'm going to go to the feminine and the neuter form and remove the endings, is or e. And once I have removed those endings, the letters that are left form the base of that adjective. So ACR is the base of this adjective. Once I have the base, I simply attach the appropriate endings. Misspelled my ending here, didn't I? All right, there we have the adjective acer, acris, acre declined in the masculine. Remember that for third declension adjectives, the masculine and feminine forms will look the same. But with this adjective, the nominative singular form for the feminine looks different than it does for the masculine. So if I switch out my prompt and ask you to decline it in the feminine, instead of them looking exactly like this, you're going to start with the feminine nominative singular form, which is acris. All the remaining forms for the feminine forms of the adjective will look exactly the same as they do for the masculine. It's just the nominative singular that looks different. Finally, let's change the prompt to say that we are going to decline it in the neuter. And we have to start with the neuter nominative singular, and then we write the base and attach the appropriate endings. Remembering that when we get to the accusative singular, the neuter law states that the accusative singular must look exactly the same as the nominative singular. And there we have it in the neuter plural. Let's have you practice very quickly. And we're going to have you practice with celer, celeris, celera. And we're going to start by having you decline the adjective in the neuter. I'll give you a few moments for you to write this down on your paper. Don't forget that before you add endings, you have to get the base by removing the ending from the masculine or the neuter nominative singular form, and whatever you have left over is the base. Your singular forms should look like this. I'll give you a few minutes to get caught up with your plural forms. And there you have it. The adjective keller, kelleris, kellera declined in the neuter. Let's try it in the masculine. There are the singular forms. I'll give you a few seconds to run through your plural forms if you haven't finished. And there we have the adjective keller, kelleris, kellera declined in the masculine. One last time, and then you can go on and work with the flashcards and take the checking for understanding quiz. I'm going to have you decline the adjective keller, kelleris, kellera in the feminine. If you still have your answer from the previous form, there's only one form that should look different, and that's the nominative singular. Not wrong to have the genitive feminine look the same as the nominative feminine. That's the way it's going to work. And there we have the adjective keller, kelleris, kellera declined in the feminine. So hopefully this has given you a pretty good understanding of how to decline third declension adjectives. If you have any questions about it, you should make sure to ask. What you might want to do is try to practice doing some writing first with the flashcards, and if you're getting things incorrect, send me an email and I'll try to help you straighten things out. Or go back and listen to this again and really practice this time and listen to what's happening. Good luck, and I hope you'll be taking that checking for understanding quiz soon and getting 100% on it. When we've mastered this, we're ready to move on to learn how to actually use adjectives and all of these endings that go with them in sentences.